Okay, so let's recap. And I'm not going to go in any particular order, but let's start with the locomotives that I picked up from Chris Kanayotek. Here we have the Model Power, which really is a Mahano, Canadian Pacific, 462 Pacific, and when I tested her, she's a smoker, and because there was a perfectly unopened packet of smoke fluid, so I did whatever I needed to do, put a little smoke juice in there, and wow, she's incredible. And even with the slightest amount of throttle applied, and this is between 30 and 35%, she runs perfect. Gonna put her back in reverse. And that's at 35% throttle. So we have that. She was in pristine condition. Wonderful runner. All right, moving right along. Now, here we have the $3 lifelike Jeep 38 in the chassis livery. I examined her. I checked the gears. The gears were fine. Needed a little lubrication. The traction tires are in absolute great condition. The brushes, however, needed to one of them needed to be replaced. So I replaced the brush, and she works fine. Strangely enough, this is on 45% throttle. She conked out on a section of the layout over by the wall, and I thought maybe I had a dead spot on the layout, even though I had cleaned all the tracks with electrical contact cleaner, and I thought, all right, do I have a dead spot? I checked all my connections. My connections are fine. And I tested it using my, my Bachmann Jeep 38 in the New England Central livery. And and that's a Spectrum, but it's also a DC locomotive. So I tested it with the New England Central. There was no dead spot. It just it seemed to have corrected itself when applying just additional throttle. So it worked through the dead spot. But it was missing a front coupler, so I replaced the coupler. This, of course, is a goner. Can't do anything about that. Will I keep the shell? Will I look for a new shell? Who knows? But we got ourselves a runner. So I'm a happy camper. So let's move right along. Now, keeping in the spirit of the chassis, here is the Lima FP45, which never had a chassis but the shell fits perfectly, fits nice and snug. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Cleaned the ring film motor, which is right over here in the back, and everything was fine. Clean, gave proper lubrication to the gears. Also ran into the same dead spot issue, but in order to correct it, you just have to apply a little more throttle. Don't be shy. So she's a pretty good runner. And let's move right along. Now, here is, I'm going to bring her up a little bit more, the FP45 that I got from Jerry. As I suspected, this was a Santa Fe, because you have the 106 over here, and you have the Santa Fe right on its nose, and the Santa Fe colors. You can also see, and I'm going to take the shell off because I didn't put it back on all the way. I mean, it's really telltale that this was a Santa Fe shell. I'm going to hold it up in the light so you can see it good enough. There's the 106 cab number. And am I going to get it on the camera? If I hold it up in the... If you could see it, I apologize if you don't. The Santa Fe is right over here. So, I am... Now, this thing's soaked. And whatever paint this previous owner used, I swear. What were you thinking? But I managed to remove the cab windows, the whole cab window, the whole cab assembly. It's all one big piece. The doors, the cab windows in the front, and the number boards. Now, part of the problem was that you did have the correct number of wires connected to this clip over here. But there was another wire. The other wire did not have to be there. All you needed were these two. But what contributed to the problem was that the pin in the front truck was missing its spring. In order for this locomotive to run properly, the spring needs to be, the pin and the spring, they need to be on a really tense situation. I really can't think of the exact words, but the spring has to be able to put this up far enough that it'll connect with this clip in order for the locomotive to run properly. Now, I found a spring, but it's not the spring. But I got her to run. And because it was missing its traction wire, its traction tires, I had to put new ones on. So we got that running pretty decent. And yet, it still is encountering that dead spot issue, but there is nothing wrong with the track. Because the Canadian Pacific that I got from Chris runs over that section of track. Now, as for what becomes of the shell, you're just gonna have to stay tuned. Now, on the subject of the two other locomotives that I picked up from Jerry, the E8A and the E8B, those are going to be the subject of another video. So, let's move right along. Alright, lastly, we have the locomotive that I picked up from Joe Polidoro. When is a Jeep 35 not a Jeep 35? When it's really a Jeep 38-2, that is the non-dynamic brake version. This particular part, after a little persuading, comes off. And in here would go a weight. The weight is missing. It's weightless. But I have other weights that I could put in here. But I did find and print from 3D print from Thingiverse, the dynamic brake housing. So I'm on the fence whether to keep it non-dynamic and decide upon a proper paint scheme for it and livery. I mean, I could keep it as is and paint it Long Island Railroad, because the Jeep 38s that the Long Island Railroad used did not have dynamic brakes. They used non-dynamic brakes. Also, the Grand Trunk in Western also used Jeep 38s without dynamic brakes. So, do I keep it non-dynamic, or do I use what I 3D printed and make it with dynamic brakes? It's not a spectacular print, but it's a good enough print for me to use on this locomotive. But even more, and give me a second. This is the circuit board from the SD60 that I had replaced with the Soundtrack's Tsunami decoder. So now over here is the MRC decoder. The MRC decoder is, for lack of better words, not behaving properly. Will not respond to resetting CV8 to 8. Thinks it's still the old road number from the SD60. So it doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything wrong with the circuit board. It's the decoder that is Gonski, and I am going to locate another 9-pin decoder as soon as I decide upon one, because I'm not sure at this point if I am going to give it sound or make it DCC silent. I'm a little bit on the fence about a DCC silent because my mind may be narrow. I just think a DCC silent is just a glorified version of DC silent. If you're going to make something DCC, then you should have sound. I mean, the D in DCC means digital. So if you're going to go digital, you go big or you go home. And if you're not, I mean, DCC is one of the benefits of DCC is that you can consist locomotives. You can have 2 or 3 locomotives in the same consist. You can make it a DPU, distributed power unit, somewhere in the middle of the consist. But locomotives are not, real world locomotives are not silent unless if they are on a static display in a museum, or its work is it's done its work for the day and it's time to put it back in the yard and you turn everything off. So a locomotive when in use is not silent. That's enough blather for me, but this will become, this may become another project. Now, the reason why these bulbs are dingle dangle dongle loosey goosey is because I was testing to see if these Eve model grain of wheat bulbs function properly, and lo and behold, they do. So I'm just going to cut them down to size. When I decide upon a decoder and I get everything to work, I'm going to cut them down to size and put everything together. So there we have it for now, folks.